a mission agency. There are, it has Gospel for Asia is the kind of mission part of that group, and they've also got something called the Believers Church. The two go together. It was founded by an Indian evangelist by the name of K.P. Yohanan. Okay. And it's headquartered in Dallas, Texas, with branches all over the world. Okay. And in India there are about 16,500 indigenous native missionaries who are involved in planting churches and preaching mainly in northern India. Okay. Basically in Madhya Pradesh, but also in other Asian countries. So this is a photograph of Believers Church in Tiruvalla, in the heart of the Syrian Christian community, where this guy has gone and cut huge swaths through there. He's bought a lot of land, all the rest of it, and this is one of his churches. He's got loads of these churches all over India. Now what's interesting is that India is located in what the evangelicals call the 1040 window. How many of you have heard of the 1040 window? Never heard of it. Now, the 1040 window, it means countries located between 10 degrees and 40 degrees north of the equator. Okay? India is among 69 countries that remain unreached. That's the word that we use.
And why is that important?
Huh?
And what is the significance of that?
That's the bit where people are unreached. They've not heard the gospel. Okay? The Palans, that it describes the fact that most people within this window are yet to hear the Christian gospel. As the GFA India website points out, the vast majority of these people live in the 1040 window, a rectangular shaped area on our globe extending from West Africa to East Asia, from 10 degrees north to 40 degrees north of the equator. That's there. That's too. And they say that in this part of the world, millions live with little or no chance of ever hearing the name of Jesus. And many live in desperate poverty, etc. Now this is the group that they are interested in, gospel, the so-called unreached groups. Now if you really look at it in terms of the politics that has happened here over the last 20 years, 30 years, you cannot but say that these guys have a role to play in raising the ante when it comes to many of these issues, right? Especially in Madhya Pradesh, etc. Now, in 1999, I read an article by William Dalrymple, and he was writing about some of these Christian groups in Gujarat, and it was fascinating to read the kinds of stuff that they're up to there. And that kind of spurred me on to do more work on these kids. Now this is a very large organization. They've got a multimedia initiative, including Christian literature, television, video, films, web-based services, radio, and I think most important of their media offerings is a radio program called Atmiya Yatra, Spiritual Journey, and that's available in about 102, 103 languages. Now, one of the interesting things these guys do is they invest a lot in the so-called indigenous, so-called tribal languages, right? Because they're also part of the unreached. Right? So they put a hell of a lot of money into reaching that kind of a group that haven't heard the gospel. Now, if you look at their website, and their website keeps changing very, very often. In fact, 2 days ago it changed again. I had used the earlier website, but 2 days ago it changed. But if you really look at their website, there are a couple of key objectives. Okay? One key objective is fundraising and attracting donations. And that's the area that you need to look at. It solicits non-cash giving inclusive of stock and mutual fund shares, restricted securities, vehicles, real estate, business interests, local loan notes, estate gifts, retirement plans. All this is part of this is how those guys make their money. It's big business. Donations are solicited for 4 projects, inclusive of the Harvest Foundation. They've got lots of ministries, individual initiatives, including Jesus Wells, Dalit Outreach, film ministry, church buildings, Muslim ministry, you name it. They've got all of it on the website. And you can donate. Okay? For example, it costs $11,000 US to build a church. We don't have that kind of money. you can pay $28 to sponsor a child for a month. That's pretty reasonable. Or $175 to sponsor 1 hour of radio programming. Okay. Now this can be done through a point and click process where items can be added to the cart like in Amazon.com. These are the websites are very interesting, very professionally done. Okay. Much better than some of the websites we come across on a daily basis. They've got, so like I said, they broadcast in 103 languages, they've got 54 Bible seminaries in India, and their tools for missionaries are quite extraordinary. You can buy these tools online, and these are donated in terms to these missionaries. So their communication strategy is extensive, more than the media. They've got a massive mission platform. And what they do is they train native missionaries. Okay, that's their business strategy. If you say, look, you're going to support a foreigner coming here to work, that's not seen as a good thing. Because India is India, you need Indians to go and missionize these guys. So that's where they make a lot of money. They push the fact that they're actually supporting Indian missionaries to go and convert Indians. That's the big deal. Now, if you look at their website, there are two key objectives. One is, like I said, the solicitation of funds and donations. Okay? And of course, here you see the health and wealth gospel working. Not only will God bless a cheerful giver, planned giving can become part of an asset management strategy supported by a partner organization. These are the kinds of things that they come up with. They've got something called Philanthrocorp, a Christian estate planning organization who will ensure reduction, and I quote, to income taxes, avoid capital gain tax, increase your current income, receive payments for life, achieve no cost, worry-free asset management. So that's one. Okay, they've got this incredible business outreach. Secondly, of course, they specialize in this persecution narrative. Okay. With regular updates on the travails faced by indigenous missionaries as they preach the gospel in the Hindu heartland. And of course, some of it is true. Some of those guys get knocked around, beaten up, all that kind of stuff. But what's interesting is that these persecution stories are often picked up by the US State Commission on International Religious Freedom. They play into that kind of stuff that monitors the state of religious freedom worldwide. So it gets in there, and reports that we look from 2006 onwards, you'll always find Believers Church, some church that is persecuted, all that kind of stuff, and make a big deal of it. I want to look at the Gospel for Asia as both donor and recipient. And this is where we were discussing, dealing with numbers. The GFA's success in fundraising has led this organization, named in the Ministry of Home Affairs, successive annual reports from 2004 onwards, is one of the third largest receiver of foreign funding in India. Is the FCRA clearance, right? So if you look at from 2004 onwards, and this information is available online, you can check it out. You will find that Gospel for Asia and Believers Church have got, you're talking of hundreds of crores of rupees on an annual basis. Huge amounts of money. Okay. There are other Christian groups as well, including Compassion International, World Vision, but these guys consistently have been on the top list. For example, they in 2010-11, I think GFA received about 81.7 crores. Believers Church, similar amounts of money, etc. etc. What's interesting about these guys is it's a non-profit, it's a not-for-profit agency registered in Texas. Okay. So the parent body is not accountable in any way. Unlike, say, Baba Ramdev's Patanjali Ayurveda. Look at Baba Ramdev's Patanjali Ayurveda. If you go to his website, there's information on paid-up capital, there's information on his financial information. You can get audited balance sheets, all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that because that's all there that money transfers and dubious things don't take place in Patanjali Ayurveda. But there is a level of there's some kind of transparency and accountability. course, there are major issues related to Baba Ramdev. There's a big issue with, with his ownership and distribution of shares. For example, NRI couples involved in some of the stuff. He owns an island of Scotland, which is given by an NRI couple, all this kind of stuff. And yet, you do have, at least you have the balance sheets and things that you look at. Even if it's all bullshit, it's there. But these guys, you don't get that kind of information. And that, I think, is a problem. So what I did was I went and checked out some of the form FC6s. So when you do an FCRA clearance, you need to get those forms in. So what these annual returns reveal is that GFA, Gospel for Asia, has got two arms, right, in India. You've got GFA India, there is a mission arm, and they've got Believers Church, that is explicitly its Christian arm. That's, worship politics. But for all practical purposes, the two annual returns reveal that money has been used for identical purposes by both organizations. So if you look at the F6 forms, for example, GFA India had a balance of 18 crores on 31st March 2013 under the category celebration of national events, such as Independence Day. While Believers Church has a 10 crore balance under the same category. So it's like this, right? A couple of categories, very similar. The establishment of the Corpus Fund had a balance of 117 crores under the GFA returns and 90 crores under the returns made by Believers Church. It's like this. And so on. In fact, in the expenditures categories, 41 in all, identical in both returns. So you wonder, the hell is all this about? Identical expenditures in both organizations. The same stuff. And taken together, expenditures amounted to close to 700 crores for the year ending March 31st, 2013. In other words, these kinds of returns don't provide accurate information at all on how the donations have been spent because of the activities of the church and of the mission arm can be expected to be slightly different. To me, the fact that such returns do not invite scrutiny by accountants in the Home Ministry does suggest a certain laxity. That they don't check these things out properly and see what the issue is.
But they will go after other NGOs.
Huh? They will go after other NGOs. Now the FC6 forms also provide information on international donors, and here too there are some very interesting takeaways. Apart from GFA Incorporated, there are a number of donor organizations, all Texas-based, that are listed, including Unfading Love, In His Steps, Grace in Action, Teaching Skills, Shepherd Care, Way of Hope. All these are what are called domestic limited liability companies in Texas. Okay. They are the ones who send a lot of money as well. Okay. These domestic limited liability. Now, of course, GFA has been a target for many Hindu groups. Okay. All sorts of characters have dissed GFA. Okay. There are one or two of them who have actually come up with some very interesting. They've documented some of this stuff. Some of the kinds of things that GFA is involved in. We'll have to take all that with a pinch of salt because they have a larger agenda. So, one of the issues with accountability is the fact that many of these independent churches are family outfits. So they are only accountable to the family, basically. People close to them. Relatives are involved, all kinds of stuff. That's typical of many of these neo-Pentecostal groups. It's run by, it's like a business thing run by the whole family. And while they say that they are transparent, there's a group in the US that oversees evangelical groups in transparency. And when you look at their, when they look at their site, it says, due to international security concerns, Gospel for Asia has requested that financial information not posted by internet. To receive a copy, go directly to them. You don't get that stuff when you write to them. Right? Now, I just want to, with respect to Yohanan, KP Yohanan himself, an interesting story about him is that neo-Pentecostal churches are very different from mainstream churches. Their pastors don't have to go through seminaries and all the rest of it. Anyway, about 10 years ago, he decided that he wants to become a bishop. Right? So he tried to get some of the bishops from the Mahatoma church, the church that I belong to consecrate him in Kerala. They refused to do that. But then he bribed bishops, the moderator of the Church of South India, and two bishops in the Church of North India, and they consecrated together.
He's not done it.
Huh?
He's not done it.
He's not done it. And it created a huge scandal, right? He owns massive amounts of properties in Kerala, including estates, 2,000, 3,000 acre estates, these kinds of things. Right? Involved in education, in health, you name it. He's there. Final thoughts on commodified Christianity. I think GFA's consumption strategy is strategically related to the Christian promise of redemption. Okay? And this is true of a number of these major neo-Pentecostal organizations in India, especially those that embrace the health and wealth gospel. Buying and giving are acts that are full of grace, since God has willed and blessed these activities. Okay? This is very different from other types of buying, precisely because it is purposive, aligned to the fulfillment of very metaphysical kind of goals. So neo-Pentecostal solutions, in other words, are grounded firmly in a capitalist logic that allows you to buy your redemption through your act of purchasing. You buy your redemption. And it's fascinating to hear what he has to say about this. K.P. Yonan says, you'd be astonished at how many people's lives are radically different today because the Lord used Gospel for Asia's Christmas gift catalog. Their daily existence was once a constant losing battle against poverty with no hope of change, etc. How I wish I could be there to meet these gift recipients, to see their eyes filled with tears of gratitude. Kind of. The transnational nature of the donor-recipient relationship requires more scholarly investigation. Very difficult to do that because there are always barriers to get that kind of information. Also, I think there needs to be a lot more work that's done on the nature of branding and the way in which the images of these televangelists and these babas are being manufactured, right, and circulated. That's extremely important as well. Yeah. In the case of K.P. Yonan, he comes across as a very sincere man. That's if you look at his website, sincerity is all there, and that's the kind of image. Whereas if you look at Paul Dinikaran of Jesus Calls, he's a man who's got supernatural powers. That's his persona kind of stuff. And these kind of taglines are implicit in their kind of performances. Also, I think there needs to be work on the processes involved in the validation of religious commodities. The correspondences between the pulpit and what people do. The circuits of production and consumption, from the pulpit to the people kind of stuff, that kind of stuff, how that works. At the same time, it's a difficult area, right? Things like healing, very problematic. Okay. Because you can come across people who say, I was healed. Right? Then what do you say? What do you tell them? You're a skeptic, right? Well, I am. I've had lots of issues with these kinds of guys. I'm healed. So what the hell do you say? You can't generalize. And that's a problem. It's a big problem when you deal with these things. And neo-Pentecostal guys have told me this. You've got to be open about the fact that healing can take place and all that kind of thing. Anyway, to conclude, Meera Nanda has described the religious situation in contemporary India as one that is characterized by the rush hour of the gods. Okay? It is clear that all religions in India, despite their groundings in holy tradition, are being thoroughly transformed, reinvented, expanded through their tryst with new technologies. This is a time for great growth opportunities for religion in India, although it is also a time for religious contestations. And yet, some of the time at least, these contestations are not zero-sum games. Despite a variety of initiatives that seem directed towards the creation of majoritarian identities and futures in India. That's Paul Dinakaran. So, when I did my fieldwork in 2006, when I went to Jesus Calls, I was asking these guys, okay, we'd gone through one BJP, couple of years of BJP rule. And I asked the guys, how did you manage under the BJP? They said, look, they've got a public persona, Advani's got a public persona, he was a private persona. We know how to deal with it. In other words, I think there are issues with money. How monies are being kind of, circulated among these communities. I mean, when a Benny Hinn has a major convention in Mumbai, he's got to deal with the Shiv Sainiks. Right? That again is one of those things that we need to actually discuss and understand. How does that work? public personas and private personas.
How many people?
Advani they showed me a photograph of Advani at Pratt with these guys.
How many people came for Benny Hill? Just
A couple of, a huge amount,
Really?
lakhs of people.
wow.
And in fact, in Bangalore and all, the hospitals, IC unit, people from there all went to get healed. It was like that. It was massive. So the analysis of accommodations between religions need to accompany the analysis of contestations.